Hello, fellow stackers. Cactus Jack here as we celebrate Veterans Day. I myself did not serve, but when I was a clinical psychotherapist in Boston, I was able to do some work with soldiers suffering from PTSD at the VA hospital there. So I kind of helped out a little bit. But today is about you guys that served, and it's a little bit of a salute to my father. He was a chief petty officer pharmacist on the Admiral's flagship, so he didn't see much action. He had quite the boss, though. His admiral won the Congressional Medal of Honor in World War One, and a bunch of other awards too. But so my dad got to serve with quite a guy. When the ship was in port in Philadelphia, my mother used to come down from Boston by train and meet with them, and the admiral took a real good liking to my dad and took him and my mother out to dinner on several occasions. But we didn't find out until I think it was 5 years ago that the guy had won the Congressional Medal of Honor. I mean, those people don't talk about it. And my father was very tight-lipped, so we didn't know about it. But so I'm proud of him, even though he didn't see action. He did his part, and he was an older guy. He signed up like most of the guys were probably 18. Some of them lied about their age. They're probably 17, but he was in his mid to late 20s, I think, most of the time when he was serving. So he kind of was the ship psychologist. You know, the younger guys would come to him and they'd have Dear John letters from back home, or they would just be lonely. And so the Admiral took a real good liking to him. My dad was quite a guy, one of my heroes. But his brother, Frank, I've shown this coin before. His brother, Frank, was the real hero of the family. I mean, I had other uncles that were in the Coast Guard, and I had some cousins that actually they died in their ship was torpedoed. They were on a troop transport, so there were a lot of people in my family that I'm pretty proud of. But my uncle, he's kind of the most celebrated, I guess, because he was in the Devil's Brigade, the Black Devils, and they were the first Special Forces. And this is a round, I should say, that commemorates that. They were teamed up. They took Canadians and Americans and put them together and trained them in Montana and sent them overseas, and they were like the spearhead of a lot of assaults. And I've got this book here. I mean, I'm going to make you seasick a little bit here by moving this around. My father gave me this book, and I never really talked to him about it. Boy, I wish I had now. I wish I had talked to my uncle, too. I didn't really get to know him that well. Frank was his name. The 1st Special Service Force. And that was they had a special knife. They'd go out at night behind German lines, and they would use that knife, if you catch my drift. So, pretty cool book. I'm not going to bore you with the whole thing, but this guy here, he bears mention. This was, this is Major General Robert Frederick, but he started out as a colonel. He was my uncle's big boss. And I think he had 3 Purple Hearts. This guy led from the front. The general staff, including Eisenhower, they were always mad at him because they'd call headquarters and they'd say, "Where is he?" He was up front with his men. He had parachuted in. And I think he had three or four Purple Hearts. Excuse me. And then he was promoted to general and then to major general. He was the youngest man ever promoted to major general in the history of the United States, with the possible exception of Eisenhower. I think Eisenhower might have gotten his 2nd star before he did. But at one point, this guy, his Jeep came around the corner face to face with a German tank, and the German tank opened up on him, killed the driver, and injured his leg, and he crawled off and was able to escape, because if they got a hold of him, that would have been something. He was a colonel at the time. But, he gets back to his unit, and he has them put a special cast on his leg, and he parachutes in like 2 days later with a broken leg. I mean, the guy was a nut, but obviously his men loved him. Here's some more officers that were in there. I apologize for the camera shaking around, but I want to show you a couple of things in here. This is funny. I laugh every time I see this. This MP was guarding this guy. They called him, thought he was a Superman. Look at the mustache. who do you think he was trying to make believe he was, And this MP's like, yeah, go ahead, try it. We'll be in the emergency room. I'll be there to get my boot back. So, but these guys were not to be fooled with, but they had a rough time. I'll tell you about that in a minute. But one of the ways they would blow off steam is some of them were from Montana and some of them were cowboys. And they'd get into a town, and when they could find a horse, they'd have bronco busting contests. I mean, these guys were nuts. They were tough as nails. My uncle was a big strapping guy. He didn't take any nonsense from anybody. But anyway, I'm really proud of him and what he did, what his accomplishments were. The biggest thing they did, they're known for, and I wish it's in here, and I should have read it last night or whatever to see if I can remember. I think it was Carino was the name of the mountain. You can check it if you want. There's been, I think, 11 books have been written about these guys, and they made a feature-length Hollywood movie with William Holden, played the part of the general. And at the time, he was like, a lot of younger guys don't know William Holden, but he was like Brad Pitt and Tom Cruise rolled into one, and they did a movie about the Black Devils. But they had a Native American who from Canada who actually he brought his moccasins with him overseas, and he would go out at night, and he performed what we might call psychological warfare. The Germans would wake up in their tents, and he would have like stolen their boots. He wanted them to know that, hey, when you guys were asleep, I could have done whatever I wanted to, and a lot of the times he did too. They'd wake up and the guy next to them had a slit throat. They used that special knife quite well. The Germans, when they knew that the Black Devils were in the area, they used to move their lines back 2 miles further back than the other sections because they were afraid of them. They captured one German lieutenant, and his diary, he had, "The Black Devils are all around us. We have no chance." I mean, they were scared to death of them, and so that was good. You have your enemy frightened to go to sleep at night, and that really that really does a number on them. It's better than a whole platoon. But the big major accomplishment they're known for is, I think it was Mount Cassino, something like that. It was the big mountain German stronghold in between the U.S. troops and Italy. They were trying to, win the war by going through there, and they wanted to liberate Rome. So, God, they had thrown 2 divisions against this mountain, and they just wouldn't budge. I think for like 6 weeks they pounded the mountain. So along come the Black Devils, and they sent them up the mountain at night, 800 of them. And the guy who set the ropes was that Native American Indian again. He climbed up a sheer cliff face and set the ropes, and all the troops went up. Unfortunately, when they got to the top, it was like the last few men were spotted coming up, and they opened up on them, and oh, what a mess. The battle took, I think it was 3 hours on top of the mountain, and they couldn't send help, So they had an 80% casualty rate, and luckily my uncle was one of the survivors. But imagine that. I think they had like 150 out of 800 men. I think only 150 survived. But they secured the mountain, and they threw the Germans off. So they were able to go into Rome. But this other general, who shall remain nameless, I think he was a 2 or 3 star. He was the big shot. He was a bureaucrat, and he didn't even belong in action. He belonged back doing paperwork, He was a real jerk. And there's a book written about him, and the guy who wrote the book said that he was responsible for more American deaths than the Germans. He was such a bad commander. But he hated the Black Devils because they were, they wouldn't salute him. And this general here, the one that was in charge of the Black Devils, he wanted his men to be the first ones to get into Rome. And that other general said, no way, no way. So 3 of the Black Devils stole a Jeep and a big American flag and drove into Rome. And they were waiting, sitting on the Jeep at the entrance to Rome when that general came in. And the look on his face, he was not happy. The very next day, he had them all lined up, and he said, you're disbanded. You're no longer Black Devils. You're no longer the Devil's Brigade. Get out of my sight. And, that's really, I don't even have the words for that. But my uncle was assigned to the 475th, which saw action in France. And he came back, he made it, he survived, but he survived physically, but not mentally, if you know what I mean. They called it shell shock back then, but I can't even imagine the horrors he must have seen. But he died young. He died in the 1960s when I was like 10 years old. So anyway, I'm rambling on because I'm so proud of him and proud of my father too. But all the guys who served and all the guys listening right now who served and supported them, my hat's off to you. This is your day. And I thought I'd share a little bit about my family history with you. I think it's pretty cool. And at least once a year, I pull this book out. I'm allowed to go. They have a reunion every year. There's nobody left. Nobody left from the Devil's Brigade is still alive. I think the last one died like 8 years ago. And they have a get-together in the Montana where they trained. And as a family member, I'm eligible to go, so I should really look that up. I wrote to them years ago, seeing if anybody was still alive that knew my uncle, but nobody was still around that remembered him. So that was kind of sad. I wish I had known when I was younger, to ask my father or ask my uncle what was going on, although I don't think my uncle would have talked about it. And my father, he didn't see action, but he didn't like talking about the war either. He just said, that's in the past. A lot of them felt that way because it was a horrific war, and so many people suffered. But, I'll try not to get into politics, but the way things are going these days with what we're seeing, I hope that my uncle and all the people who have served in all the wars, I hope it wasn't in vain. I hope that our country isn't dissolved from within. Nikita Khrushchev told President Kennedy that he wouldn't have to fire a shot. Russia would not have to fire a shot, that the United States would dissolve from within. We would tear apart each other. And, geez, I hope that wasn't a prophecy, because it's starting to look like that's a possibility. I hate to say it. But for all these men to have died in vain and to have served only to see our statues torn down by these idiots. And, they're coming to power. There's no doubt about it. These people, and what's the phrase? All enemies, foreign and domestic? Yeah. Okay, keep that in mind in the coming months. I think we got a fight on our hands. Maybe I'll get to serve yet. You know what I'm saying, huh? All right, I'll get off my soapbox. But anyway, happy Veterans Day.